The film begins with Ray Francis, a war veteran who has recently returned to his homeland. This will be his final deployment because he intends to leave the military and marry his girlfriend. Meanwhile, a lovely lady named Kelly is having fun in a city park. Ray then appears unexpectedly from behind and surprises the woman. The woman turns out to be his lover, and she is overjoyed to see Ray because he had previously stated that he would be home next week. Ray then quickly removes a ring from his pocket and proposes to Kelly. Ray's proposal, of course, takes the woman by surprise and delight, and she accepts it without hesitation. After that, the two of them plan to leave the park, but Kelly forgets to bring the book she was reading to happen to them both, especially Ray. Two men in a luxury car suddenly approach, and one of them, Tim, tries to seduce Kelly. Ray and Kelly initially try not to respond to them and get into the car. Instead, Tim gets out of his car, removes his pants, and displays his torpedo right in front of Kelly's window. Ray becomes enraged and begins to beat the two men, but Tim pulls out a knife and Ray attempts to deflect the knife attack. Unfortunately, bad things keep happening to them because the man is killed by his own knife. Ray and Kelly go to see their lawyer as a result of that incident because Ray is facing murder charges. Ray is faced with two difficult choices, according to the lawyer. If he enters a guilty plea, his sentence will be reduced to 2 to 3 years, and he will be able to serve only 18 months. If Ray does not enter a guilty plea, he could face a prison sentence of 5 to 8 years. In other words, if Ray chooses either of these two options, he will no longer be able to avoid prison. Finally, he appears to have decided to enter a guilty plea and serve an 18-month prison sentence. We then see the murdered man's father, Harvey Thompson, who appears to be unable to accept his son's death. Furthermore, it appears that the father is not your average person, as we can see that he sends his man to find out the identity of Ray Francis. The person also provides additional information about Ray's imprisonment location. The setting then shifts to the prison where Ray will be held. Let me introduce you to this man. His name is Jack Morrison, and he is in charge of this prison. The father of the man killed by Ray pays him a visit. Harvey, who has been devastated by his son's death, requests that Jack ensure Ray will never be able to leave prison again. He offers a large sum of money in exchange, which Jack would use to pay his subordinates to carry out his heinous acts. The day has finally come for the inmates to start serving their sentences. Rico, one of the guards, is greeting the new inmates. Ray and several other prisoners are being asked to remove all of their clothing in order to undergo a security check. Rico develops a dislike for Ray as he tries to defend the man next to him who is being forced to remove his underwear. Rico has made physical contact with Ray since the first day of his imprisonment. Ray is then led by a guard named Williams to meet Jack Morrison. Ray served in the military for 12 years, 4 of which were spent in Iraq, as revealed here. He was also given a bravery medal for his actions in Iraq. At this point, Jack tries to act nice as if he isn't up to anything, and instructs the guard to keep an eye on him. Williams then leads Ray to his cell and starts warning him. Ray begins to receive a warm welcome from other inmates after only a few days. There is some fighting. It appears to be a fight between the two groups, but Williams steps in and orders them to leave. Ray is assigned to work in the prison library while incarcerated. He then meets David, a senior inmate who informs him of the location of the books. But he manages to keep his emotions under control. Ray is reading a diary in his cell when he is interrupted by Rico and the others, who begin to search his room. The old guard then discovered a photograph of Ray's girlfriend. Ray has to see a photo of Rico licking his girlfriend, and he really wants to beat up that old guard. But he can't. Furthermore, Rico aggravates Ray by tearing up a photograph of his girlfriend. Victor and Fox, by the way, are the other two guards. Rico commands Ray to remove his shirt and begins to intimidate him. Rico, who is not satisfied with simply hitting him, wants to do something far more extreme, but Victor intervenes and stops him. Ray is once again mistreated by a prisoner while taking a shower. At the moment, a large man named Hammer is impressed by Ray's torpedo. Ray is then told to knelt so that Hammer can sharpen his sword. As a result, Ray gives Hammer a turn to Jack's room. Ray tries to explain that he was simply defending himself against the gay man. Instead, Jack appears unconcerned about it, claiming that it is normal for them to share their asses there. Ray is beaten repeatedly by the guards because he continues to argue. Victor then requests that they stop beating Ray because he will be killed. Ray rejoins the inmates in the library for lunch, including Jade, a young man who is still only 18 years old. Ray notices a convict who had a fight with him at the start of his imprisonment. During their conversation, Ray and David continue talking about their past in the library. It is revealed that David will not be released from prison because he and his brother robbed a money truck, shot 2 security guards, and killed a police officer 15 years ago. His brother was also killed in the robbery, and the money has yet to be found. and only David knows where it is hidden. During their conversation, Rico enters the room unexpectedly and informs Ray that he has a visitor. Rico's visitor is actually his girlfriend, as it turns out. Ray smiles at her from a distance, as this is Kelly's first visit. Unfortunately, it and tells him to come inside. Furthermore, Rico deliberately provokes Ray by saying he wants to make out with his girlfriend. They make every effort to elicit Ray's emotions, but they are unable to do so because Ray is a tough guy. After that, Ray gathers with Mason and his gang to play cards. Mason offers to protect Ray while he is in prison because of his tough demeanor. While Jade, 18, is working out, he is harassed by the gay Hammer, who previously wanted to rape Ray. Jade, who is still a young man, is nearly beaten with a dumbbell by him. Ray, fortunately, arrives and assists Jade. Williams then rushes over and stops them. Ray has been under a lot of pressure since the beginning. He is cleaning the toilet when he is approached by the man who had previously fought with him. The guy tries to exact revenge on Ray, but Ray easily defeats him. Rico will always appear to have noticed Ray's every move whenever Ray is fighting the bad guy. This time, however, Jack joins him. Jack, who has been bribed by Harvey and has his own mission, takes a bat and pushes it behind Ray. The following day, the 3 bodyguards bribed by Jack gather, and Victor begins to express his desire to withdraw from the situation. He also threatens to report the incident to higher-ups. Following Victor's departure, Williams, the head of the guard, approaches them and reveals that he is completely unaware of what is going on behind his back. He then chastises them for telling Ray to clean the toilet, despite the fact that he had assigned Ray to work in the library. Williams reminds his 2 men throughout the conversation not to make any decisions without his permission again. Rico and Fox then inform Jack that Victor has decided not to participate and that he intends to derail their plans. After that, Jack tells them to deal with Victor. Following that, the 2 guards enter a prisoner's cell and begin inspecting his bed. They then find a sharp weapon and flee after the prisoner is ordered to kneel and apologize. When that convict is assigned to clean the toilet, he is astounded to discover Victor has been murdered. Rico and Fox arrive shortly after, and it turns out that this was a premeditated murder. As a result, they accuse the prisoner who was carrying the sharp weapon of being the murderer. Ray sits with David during the leisure activity and attempts to question him about Mason. Mason is a big deal here, according to David, because he runs the drug syndicate from inside the prison and has his own gang. However, Mason's group notices their conversation and approach Ray and David. Mason then warns Ray to be cautious about which side he chooses in prison. This is due to the fact when Ray and David are taking a shower, Mason's group appears and stabs the man who had previously fought with Ray in the toilet of murdering the man and explains that he had nothing to do with the murder. Ray persuades the group that Mason's gang is to blame for the death of the gangsman. We then move on to Jade, an 18-year-old boy who is being abused by Hammer in a hidden room. The lights are turned off, and Hammer returns to sharpening his sword. Ray's girlfriend, on the other hand, has returned for a second visit, but instead, she is treated unfairly by the 2 evil guards. Kelly is instructed to remove her clothes in order to pass through the security check. She has no choice but to do it because she has been waiting for Ray for 2 weeks. Of course, Ray, who is aware of this, is furious, but he is powerless to intervene. Meanwhile, Hammer mistreats Jade once more, and he eventually musters the courage to kill him. Hammer is stabbed in the torpedo with a screwdriver. Ray is then summoned to Mason's cell, where Mason is enraged that Ray has refused to join him. While Ray is spending time with David, Rico and Fox appear out of nowhere and drag him to the workshop. Furthermore, Mason appears to be the mastermind behind both of their actions. Mason threatens to kill any of Ray's close relationships, including David and Kelly, because Jack does not want Ray killed. Rico then intends to injure Ray's hand, and Ray can't take it any longer, so he beats up the 2 guards. Ray is forced to enter the designated. Williams then enters Jack's office and inquires as to why Jack directed the 2 guards to bring Ray to the workshop. But Jack refuses to admit it, reminding Williams that he is in charge at the prison. Ray, on the other hand, is treated like an animal, and after a few weeks there, he nearly goes insane. He is finally allowed to leave the cell after serving a lengthy sentence in a closed cell. Currently, he is being escorted away by one of the guards, whom Jack does not bribe. Williams is attempting to learn from Ray what the problem is that is causing him to be treated poorly by almost everyone in the prison. But Ray won't say anything because he doesn't trust anyone in the prison. Williams, it turns out, is also an ex-soldier like him. Mason still wants revenge on Ray after he recovers, and he asks Jade to stab Ray. But Jade couldn't bear the thought of stabbing Ray because he had always been there for him. Mason instead kills Jade, who has already joined his group at the time, as a result of her refusal. Ray, who has learned that his friend has been killed, can no longer contain his emotions, insults Mason's actions of killing his own man after defeating the Bald with 3 hits. As a result, Ray gains the support of his fellow inmates and challenges Mason to a one-on-one fight. Jack is aware of everything that is going on, but he orders the guards to stand back and let them fight. Ray, who has a military background, will no doubt easily defeat Mason. Ray eventually strangles Mason and nearly kills him. When he looks at David, however, he shakes his head, indicating that Ray should not kill the man. He then lets go of Mason, but a knife appears and lands on Mason's side. As a result, Mason attempts to take advantage of the situation and is eventually stabbed to death by the rival group's leader. Following that, Ray is led into Jack Morrison's room, where Jack informs him that Ray's prison sentence has been extended. Ray then curses him with harsh words, successfully provoking Jack's emotions. As a result, Jack eventually reveals that he was paid a large sum of money to keep Ray in prison, and it turns out that it was all a setup. And armed with this evidence, Williams and his team show up and arrest Jack. The prison's so-called boss, Rico, and Fox, the worst of the guards, are also arrested. Ray goes to see David, who is still alive, after everything is over. At this point, David graciously informs him of the location of the stolen money that he has hidden. He requests that Ray accept the money and begin a happy new life with it. In addition, David expresses his love for his daughter and requests that Ray give her a bag of money. Ray is eventually released from prison, and Williams bids him farewell with a handshake. His girlfriend greeted him cheerfully. Aside from that, Ray meets David's daughter and gives her a money bag. As he prepares to leave, he invites David's daughter to pay a visit to her father, who has been missing her. Williams is seen instructing the new inmates to wear the prison uniforms before the film ends. And it turns out that one of them is Tim's father, Harvey Thompson. He is the one who bribed Jack and caused all of the previous problems in the prison.